given the fact that we are looking at this kind of unending story that has not really materialized. I mean, it's been dozens, maybe verging on hundreds of hours so far that they have been looking for the aftermath of this flight. And in the midst of it all, I've wondered if I was in that situation, how would I be responding to what was being reported and how it was coming across. And there's a reason that I'm actually going to get to that part of this discussion here in just a second, because it is Monday. And for those of you that are with me on Mondays, you know that there's something important that we look at each Monday. But I'll take just a couple more calls first. Let's go to Donald in Oklahoma. Hi, Donald. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're here.
How you doing, brother Kevin?
I'm doing well. What's your thought on this?
I was calling in regards to the gentleman that had the training in the Air Force on inspections. I served 20 years in the Air Force, worked on aircraft, and then I worked 23 years afterwards on bigger Air Force aircraft. And I do know that this plane did have an ELT. All the big planes from Boeing has ELTs.
Sure.
Even if it got hit by a missile, the ELT would have went off. Even if it crashed, even in the ocean, the ELT would have went off. Now, as far as the guy having a button to hit if he was hijacked, I don't know if that aircraft has that type of apparatus, and I don't want to speculate what happened to it, but it is possible to be hijacked, go below radar, and nobody know it. Seeing as there's no indication, no beeper going off to let anybody know that he's crashed, it's kind of hard to, judge what has happened to this plane.
And I guess, there's obviously another set of questions that could be asked, like, is it possible that the pilots could have been in on it?
Yes.
Because then they don't hit the button and then the distress signal doesn't go out, even if the plane is equipped with it. And if that's the case, where are they? You can't hide a 777 in your garage.
No, they're kind of huge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
aren't they? Well, they're. How close are they to being the biggest? I mean, they're one of the larger Boeing planes, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They're very huge. It's one of the largest there is. I'd say it's about as big as an Air Force 117, which is a pretty large aircraft.
Very good. Well, Donald, I appreciate the call. Let's go to BC. BC, I'm not sure where you're calling from, but thanks for being here. Hi.
Good morning, Kevin. I'm calling from Texas.
Okay.
Can you refresh my memory? Where was that aircraft leaving from? I'm pretty sure it was going to China.
Yeah, it left Malaysia and was going just across the sea there to China.
Yeah.
It wasn't even supposed to be that long of a flight.
There are a lot of Muslims in Malaysia, and I truly believe that this was an inside job, because the 777 is a very safe and durable and proven aircraft. It's the second largest to the 787 made by Boeing. And
the 787 is that thing that's like the size of a cruise ship, right?
Oh, God, it's huge. I mean, it only has two engines, but they're humongous. And
right.
Here's the thing. I worked on airplanes for 28 years for Delta Airlines and 4 years in the Air Force during Vietnam. And these things do have those emergency transmitters.
Right.
This plane had to have been blown up because the transmitter's not giving out a signal, or at least they can't find one. And it brings to memory the scenario that happened when the Russians shot down the Korean Airlines 747. They never found the airplane because it was blown up by this Russian fighter that shot missiles into it.
But they didn't find anything? They never found any remnants of the aircraft at all?
Oh, no, the plane exploded. I mean, all that fuel on board and, the fact that it was shot by missiles. I mean, that thing, those people never knew what hit them, and the plane just completely exploded. So, I mean, they may have found a little baggage, but irregardless, that plane had to have been blown up. Okay, if it was above ground, like crashed on the Earth's surface, then that pinger would be going off. If it was below surface and it hadn't been blown up, that pinger would be going off. That plane had to have been blown up.
Or
And
someone piloted it somewhere under the radar.
Only God knows what happened, but I truly believe it was an outside force that committed that, or somebody on the inside, and not necessarily the crew. I think everybody...
And that's, BC, thanks for the call. That's an interesting observation, though, because, again, the purpose of terrorism, the reason terrorists do terrorism is so that people know about it. So that they see the devastation, so that it strikes fear into the hearts of people, so that there's this, then they can leverage a threat against somebody and say, remember how it happened to them, that's how it's going to happen to you. There's no leverage here. So and maybe the terrorists messed it up. Maybe they didn't do it if it was terrorism the way they were supposed to. But I'm just wondering if because it doesn't. None of the explanations make sense so far. I hear a critique of every explanation so far, and none of them really say, "Aha, that's." And especially now that we know that these two stolen passport guys were on there, and there was an Iranian connection. I mean, could it have flown to Iran? Well, wouldn't somebody have seen something somewhere? I mean, you got to cover a lot of ground to get from Malaysia over to the Middle East. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of airspace. 888-589-8840. But let me try Jim in Illinois. Hi, Jim.
Hey,
Jim, are you there?
This morning.
Doing well. Thanks for the call.
All right, I appreciate you taking me. I'm interested in a lot of the remarks that are coming across. And of course, everybody's got their own opinion. I keep wondering about the wreckage, if it is actually destroyed, why we're not finding any wreckage. But I find it even more interesting. Nobody seems to want to answer the question that started the whole conversation, which was, how would we deal with the situation?
Right. So how would you deal with it?
And you made the remark, would you prepare yourself for the worst that my family is dead? In today's world, in my opinion, that's not the worst. Most of my family knows the Lord. They're Christians, and if he were to snap his fingers and take them home, that would not be the worst. The worst case scenario would be, what if this plane was slipped in under the radar somewhere and they were captive and there was a situation there? I would have to be sincerely trusting God to be taking care of my family in that situation.
Right.
That would be a more disturbing thought to me than their instantaneous death in a plane crash.
Well, and that's well put, Jim, and I appreciate that perspective, and thanks for answering my actual question. A lot of people did get off on the other part of it. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because this is Monday, and I've told you on Mondays what we're committed to here. We're committed to encouraging America, and specifically you, to pray. We're partnering with the Brooklyn Tabernacle, Pastor Jim Cymbala, a church and a ministry that is known by the prayer that they have prayed for 40 years. When Pastor Cymbala first came to Brooklyn Tab, they had about 15 members, and the first week's offering was somewhere around $85. And he said he has said on more than one occasion that his sermons were so boring he put himself to sleep from the pulpit. His wife doesn't read a lick of music, but her choir has won 8 Grammy Awards for excellence. So they were both completely underskilled for what the world would say you should be doing, and yet God has blessed their ministry. And Pastor Cymbala and Carol both will say again and again and again and again, it's only because God's had His hand on what we're doing, and we want to pray and remain in communication and fellowship with Him. So at the beginning of the year, we've wrapped arms around Brooklyn Tabernacle, and we've said we're going to pray with you, and they're going to pray with us. But I have a question for you. How was your week last week? Last week, the prayer focus was trust in Him with all your heart. But what was the week like? Did you get frustrated? Troubled? Angry? Depressed? Let me just let you know you weren't alone. I think it's been a pretty amazing journey for those of us that have been on this prayer journey since January 1st of this year. To get down this road of prayer, to see that some of the issues we were fighting even in December in our own lives are actually worsening in some ways. So what do you do? Do you lose heart? You got a relative on the Malaysian flight. Do you lose heart? Do we worry? Do we work more? Do we try harder? Do we try longer? What do we do? What we do, all of that stuff. If we want to end up in an early grave, that's the typical way we respond to it. We just, okay, I got to do more. And a couple of weeks ago, in my own life, in my professional life, my little company that I run, we had a near nuclear bomb go off. Not a physical bomb, but a business bomb. And a project that I've given 5 years to just imploded completely. There's a lot of aspects of how I support my family that's tied to that. So, of course, this is it hit me and has had an impact in my life that is about the equivalent of a huge crater that sits there. And in the past, I've handled these difficulties very, very differently. I've always gotten back up and said, okay, I'm going to brush myself off and go even more, go even stronger, go even harder. In the past, I've pushed and hurried and worked harder and longer. And I'll admit, sometimes I've lost heart, and sometimes I've questioned my faith. That's why this week's encouragement from Pastor Cymbala means so much to me personally. And if you want to get it in your inbox every Monday, it's real super simple. Go to pray2014.com and request it. There's no cost to it. But through this journey of prayer that we've been on, coming alongside a man who has built his entire ministry and life on prayer, I was encouraged to respond to that crisis in my life differently. I was encouraged, instead of worrying, to pray. I was encouraged, instead of trying to face it on my own, to share it with others. I was encouraged to, instead of having anxiety, to give it over. Now, on pray2014.com, we've started posting prayer requests from you. You've been logging in and posting your own requests on that page. And I tried something else that I was advised to do, and that is, when this little bomb went off in my life, turn the focus to others. And so last week, I spent a lot of time praying for you. And I've encouraged others that go to that site, pray for 2 or 3, 4 or 5 of the requests that are on the request section of the page. As you leave yours, pray for at least 2 to 3 more. And this time I'm choosing to wait on God. Not going to try harder, not going to try longer. And not everything is settled for me. There's a lot of difficult navigation to come. But I'm confident that the worry in this matter is not mine. It's His. It's God's. He knew ahead of time. He knew that plane was going to go missing. He knew that this particular impact in my own life was going to occur. He knew that these things were coming. So what I want to encourage you to do this week, in our prayer focus for the week, is to pray just as Pastor Cymbala has encouraged us to do. In a sermon just a couple of weeks ago, he recently reminded us in a candid moment. He was preaching along, and in the middle of his sermon, he just stopped. And he prayed from his heart. He said, Father, we take our eyes off of our money. We take our eyes off of our job. We take our eyes off of our education and friends and family. And today we place them on you. Because like Psalm 62 reminds us, you alone are our help. Friends, we may not have relatives on that Malaysian air flight today. And you may not have a bomb going off in your work life or in your business or in your family, but there are many of you that may have that. Go to pray2014.com. Put your request in there. Let us pray for you. There's 5,100 people across the country that are praying for one another through what we're doing here, and that's exciting, but I want to see God continue to use us in one another's lives. And Father, at the end of the day, what we want to say is, let it be done to your honor, to your glory, not for ours. Give the worry over. Let Him take it. He's better at solving it anyway. And take your eyes and put them on someone that you can help today. Take your eyes and put them on someone else who's in a more difficult circumstance than you. What you will find is that as you give out, God will find a way to supply you. And so as you're helping others, God will help you. And as you give your time and energy and love and care to someone else, God will bring time and energy and love and care into your life. It's a spiritual law, friend. So let's do it this week. No matter how tough, no matter how rough it gets, give your time, prayer, energy, focus, and maybe money if necessary to those that are in worse shape than you. You will find that God steps in and moves in. But help us not to keep our eyes on the money, the job, the education, the friends, or the family. Those are just things that He gives us, and sometimes things that He takes out of our lives. The purpose of life is Him. So let's focus on Him. If you want to get the prayer focus every Monday, delivered to your inbox, no cost, no nothing, pray2014.com, pray2014.com. I'm Kevin McCullough. Always enjoy being with you on AFA Today here on AFR Talk, and I look forward to being with you all week. Brian Fisher is coming up next with Focal Point, the Silver Fox standing by with more news and anything that breaks on the discovery of the Malaysian Airliner. He'll have it in full tow. I'm Kevin McCullough. Have a great Monday.